Yo, what's good, y'all? We are here with another reaction. Sonic vs. the Big Three isn't close. Now, I got recommended this. We just seen a couple weeks ago. We seen Archie Sonic being like this crazy universal level. So let's see Sonic versus the Big Three. I mean, I would assume if Sonic can beat Goku, then he can take down Naruto, Luffy, and Ichigo. If I'm being honest, but let's see.
I think when
You never
talking
know.
about how strong a character is, there are levels of characters you need to be able to beat to be considered strong. With
That's true.
Son Goku or Superman being at the top of that list, and with the more realistic tier being that of the big three, which consists of Luffy, Naruto, and Ichigo. With the success of videos the likes of Goku versus
if Luffy, Naruto, and Ichigo are a tier lower than them, that's crazy. Cause like Goku itself is already like at a high level. We need like a middle tier and then them. You know.
the big three being so successful, it inspired me to dip my toes in this. So I thought to myself, who is the Goku equivalent? Sonic the Hedgehog, a classic character, has been compared to Goku many times in his own right. So let's see if the blue blur can stand up against these titans.
Clean. Let's get to it. Let's get to it.
Starting off with the speed of Bleach. In chapter 91, Uryu was able to move so fast that he was essentially able to move faster than the light that can erase his shadow, or is essentially faster than his shadow. Now when crunching the numbers or doing the calculations, they consistently range around 50% of the speed of light. Now this can be consistent, as if you remember in the beginning of the series, Ichigo is able to react and attack a Zero from Gillian, which Zeros are stated to be in the data books to be a spiritual light. This is important because as we see that Captain being Mayuri is greater than Uryu, and when just assuming he's twice as strong as him, one of the weakest captains would be the speed of light. In which if we assume an even far stronger captain, that being Byakuya, is just equal to him in base, and if he uses his Bankai, he becomes 10 times greater or be 10 times the speed of light. While Bankai Ichigo would be more than 10 times the speed of light, as he's not only perception blitzing him while in Bankai, but also his attacks. And Byakuya's attacks are stated when he's using the palms, which are stated to move faster, and just assuming it's 2 times, Ichigo is shown to be able to continue to dodge them. Then he would be at least 20.
Real question is, who do y'all think is the strongest? Ichigo, Naruto, or Luffy? I already watched Naruto One Piece. I'm watching Bleach as we speak right now. Yeah, I'll give my opinion soon.
Times the speed of light. But something to note is that the amp for Bankai is a 5 to 10 times amp, and at this time Ichigo would most likely have the 5 times amp, as it's implied he hasn't mastered it, which is why it's hurting him in the fight, making base Ichigo, at least in this arc, 4 times the speed of light, which can be consistent as he blitzed the lieutenants, who could react and dodge the Nagashon, which is stated both inverse and data books to be rays or beams of light. Now this is where things kick up. For one, I want to point out, at this time Ichigo was get his resolve and he was able to receive the full 10 times amp, as this should be consistent as he's able to retain in his Bankai consistently fine with long periods of time with no side effects. So now towards the start of the Arrancar arc, he would be around 40 times the speed of light. But in his Hollow Mask, he would get an extra 10 times stronger, as holifications consistently stated to be as strong, not stronger than Bankai, so at least a 10 times amp, or he would be 400 times the speed of light. And later in this arc, this would become his new Bankai base, as he was able to fight Grimmjow in that base before he resurrectioned, as before he needed the holification to even go against him with one arm. And if he would ever add the Hollow Mask like he did against Grimmjow, he'd be 4,000 times the speed of light. And again, he was able to surpass this as his new Bankai base was able to fight and dodge Ukiura, in which Ukiura is the 4th Espada while Grimmjow's the 6th, and we see that Ukiura was able to speed blitz and one-shot that Ichigo right before he fought Grimmjow in his Hollow Mask, making his new Bankai base 4,000 times the speed of light. And again, when he uses the holification or Hollow Mask, he get another 10 times, or he'd be 40,000 times the speed of light. Now yes, Ukiura was being pressed by said Ichigo, but he was still able to react and even outspeed him with the Hollow Mask. And when he enters his resurrection, he would be 10 times greater, as it's been stated that the same amp is applied from the Bankai. And in his second resurrection, he'd be at least another 10 times, so 10 times 10 is 100, meaning he'd be 100 times that of a Hollow Mask Ichigo, or be 4 million times the speed of light. And Ichigo in his Vassal state was superior, so we just say he's 2 times great, or he'd be 8 million times the speed of light. And his Vassal Lord itself would be at least 200 times amp in speed from his Hollow Self Mask, and in general he'd be at 20,000 times amp in speed. And to avoid any contentious inverse arguments, we all know that Dangai Ichigo is much stronger than Vasto Lorde's self, as he was stronger than third Transcendent State Aizen, in which his first Transcendent State was transcended to all Shinigami and Hollow in comparison, in which he already knew how strong Vasto Lorde was. And as mentioned in his first state, it was stated he was evolved or a higher level of Zanpakuto that would include his Bankai, so it was at least a 10 times amp as it's beyond that of a Bankai amp, and he at least had Kai, so it was at least a 10 times evolve or a higher level of Zanpakuto that would include his Bankai, so it was at least a 10 times amp as it's beyond that of a Bankai amp, and he at least got 2 times stronger in his second Transcendence and another 2 times in his third, and Dangai Ichigo is at least 2 times that. And if we say that the Transcendent Aizen multiplier starts right off from the Vasto Lorde Ichigo, he'd be 40 times Vasto Lorde, or be 160 million times the speed of light, while Dangai Ichigo would be 320 million times the speed of light. And Mugetsu Ichigo is in a state even beyond that, so another evolution that was stated, and if we just assume again, just bare minimum, it would be a 10 times amp as already another level beyond the level that was beyond Bankai. It would be 3,200,000,000 times the speed of light. And something to note that a base True Shikai Ichigo was stated to be as strong as himself, who defeated Aizen and he regained his power, in which that Ichigo was the Mugetsu, so his new base would be that speed, so do with that with what you will. So scaling Ichigo's AP will be extremely easy to go over, as it's stated in the Unmasked Databook that becoming a Zangetsu allows one to exceed everything but at the cost of everything, essentially putting Mugetsu Ichigo above the entire verse at this time. Anyone who scales to him now, such as Aizen, Yuwatch, and even Can't For Your Own World Kenpachi at this level as well. And this can be consistent as these levels of fighters were considered higher dimensional by Aizen himself, as well as consistent with his plethora of statements that put them or stated to be transcending all Shinigami and Hollow.
Dude, Ichigo is Oki. What the heck? He is that.
This is important because a base True Shikai Ichigo was stated to regain his power he used to defeat Aizen, or his original power, meaning just his base True Shikai Ichigo would essentially scale most of the verse at this time and any of the feats they had. Starting off, some blazing stuff, that being the Sokyuku. It's stated to have the power to destroy the Soul Society itself. Now, I interpret this feat as they're referring to the planet, because if they're referring to the actual realm or universe, it would make other later feats very lackluster if Soul Society characters are blocking and or destroying this universal threat, making the Sokyuku planetary and Soul Society Ichigo by proxy. And this can be consistent as legit in the next arc, just by Ichigo flexing his power can affect the entire world, and captains and high-end lieutenants have to put a limit on themselves so they don't affect the world just by existing. And of course we have the infamous feat of Yamamoto being able to destroy the Soul Society while holding back by just existing, with all these feats being blatantly planetary, but we have much higher feats. As for an example, the Persian or Shinigami known as Senna was able to release all of the Blank's energy to push back the Soul Society and the world of the living back before they collided. And just assuming they were only the planets of this feat, then yes, it would be blatantly planetary, but when taking a look at the Kyogyuku itself...
I like when anime characters just go from like really, really weak into like crazy broken characters at the very end of the series, or even like at the middle of the series where it's like, okay, now they can start planet level, universe level, when they would start at like a tree level or like even like city level. That'd be funny at times. I'm like, how do they even like? It gets so crazy, you know?
It's not only shown to have a star in it as shown in the holographic map of it, but even the light novels state that there's natural light in there, in which natural light comes from stars or suns, only more proof besides the visual confirmation, meaning at that moment she was able to be star level in terms of energy. This can be seen as consistent as the Fullbringer Yukio with his ability to create and control dimensions. He was able to create a dimension with a visible star in for Chad's training, in which said feed being calculated comes up to around solar system level in joules. And even Grimjow, the Can't Fear Your Own World's second light novel, chapter 9, is just stated with this just singular Grand Race arrow would be stated to be potent enough to destroy the sun while in base. With all these feats being consistent, them being star level and either from being able to destroy or create one and then destroying realms of stars in them, i.e. Senna, and even the Kido canon was stated to be able to destroy the Kyogyuku as well as shown. And with all these feats, now a base True Shikai Ichigo would easily scale to the solar system levels of power, and with his max transformations, he would comfortably be putting him in these solar system levels of power relatively with ease. And at this moment I should probably go over why Memories of Nobody movie is canon. Well, for one, the Kyogyoku itself is stated and shown to exist in the original source material, that being the manga. Ichigo even recalls the time where he went into it, which only happened in the movie. Even at the end of the chapter, the author puts a little side note telling us to go watch the movie for more information, showing us he wants us to engage in the movie, which would confirm it to be even more canon. Not to mention it perfectly fits and aligns with the timeline, as there was a perfect 1 to 2 month time skip they had to prepare during the events, and this could have easily happened with the movie, as it would have even made sense for the time frame. And for anyone asking why doesn't anyone talk or remember about Senna, it was literally stated at the end of the movie that when she died she was completely erased from existence, to even where the memories of her would be erased, and it specifically noted that it was only her and not the events that conspired, meaning it would not matter if she was erased as the events still happened, which is why they can still remember the Kyogyoku as well as the other events that did not directly involve her or her existence. Now, to establish the upper echelon of power in Bleach, you must establish a few inverse stuff. A base Yuha is able to fight on par with the Ichigo, who's not only the leader, but is also implied to be the strongest of the Squad Zero. Then he not only gets the almighty amp and effortlessly destroys Ichigo, but then absorbs the Mimihage, which is the right hand of the Soul King, and then absorbs the entirety of the Soul King. And people like base Trushi cut Ichigo skills to this Yuha to an extent, so putting these fighters of this caliber essentially above the entirety of their verse. The first main feat to go over is shown in the anime, in which one of the Squad Zero members, Shinjamaru, just by going Bankai, is able to shake all 3 realms simply by existing. They themselves confirmed this by even stating, and I quote, "Even the slightest use of our power would cause the heavens and the earths of the 3 realms to tremble." Now people say due to the phrase the heaven and the earth, it's referring to the planets and not the actual realms. This however is excluding the actual context and of the wording, as the actual kanji being used Tenchi, which doesn't refer to planet but actually refers to the universe or all of existence, meaning by simply existing she was able to shake all of the universe on some Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods shit. Now shaking the entire universe doesn't equate to destroying the universe, as shaking the universe is only including the actual mass or celestial bodies in it. And yes, before people question, Bleach has shown visually and demonstrated in many statements, as well as to show that the Bleach cosmology has celestial bodies such as stars, galaxies, as well as repeated statements of the realms being universes. And the Soul Society and the world living are stated and implied to be parallel or equal to each other in size or in general to each other, with the calculations of this feat being calculated upwards of the 76 joules or multi-galaxy level. But these Soul King level fighters or above have higher ends, as just the death of the Soul King was able to cause everything including the Dangai to collapse and be destroyed. Even the Mimihage was able to stop this by just literally physically holding on to it. And Yuha not only absorbed both, but was stated just his existence would keep up the realms from collapsing and or being destroyed. Hell, even his dead corpse was stated to be able to stop the universe from destroying. He's even stated that he could have destroyed the Garganta. This would bare minimally of course get them to Universal, but also taking a deeper look into their cosmology, the Dangai inside the light novels are stated to be hyperspace. Now looking at the kanji, it does more so a lot translates to hyperspace, but it could also mean subspace. Now when looking at the context of the Dangai, it does not fit the requirements of a subspace, as it's not a space located within inside a said or another space. It more fits or aligns with the definition of a hyperspace, which involves a space for either traveling to places, in most cases can use an FTL travel, but that's not the case specifically. The reason why it's so important because hyperspaces are innately higher dimensional or 4th dimensional objects or bodies. And we not only have the one statement, but even inside Bleach, the movie, anime, comics, Memories of Nobody, or essentially the manga adaptation of said movie, it again calls it a hyperspace by Kisuke, not just the Japanese adaptation but also in the French adaptation as well, making the Bleach cosmology 4th dimensional or universal plus. But their cosmology can be considered higher with the includence of the Garganta, as in the Can't Fear Your Own World Volume 3 page 396, with the English translations of it, it says that the Garganta is an endless expanse. Now endless can mean boundless or to have no limits, it can also refer to infinity, but we don't actually need to make this argument as the actual kanji being used is Mugen or Mugen-ne, which directly translates to infinite or infinity. It's essentially being stated that it's an infinite expanse or an infinite space. With the Garganta being the encompassing force of the Bleach cosmology, that means that it's infinite in comparison to everything, and that would also include the Dangai. Or the Bleach cosmology is infinite 4D or potentially multiversal plus. As we already established, Yuha scales to this, and with the base Ichigo somewhat scaling to this, making Ichigo universal plus to potentially multiversal plus. Ichigo's probably most lackluster quality about him is his abilities, or essentially essentially he has almost none. He has the standard power nullification, as in Bleach, if you're just stronger than your opponent, you just naturally negate their attacks. It's also shown to be their abilities as well. And of course he can directly attack the soul, as that's just what they do in Soul Reapers. They are souls and everything they do is soul based. They just consistently attack the souls directly. And for his biggest resistance is he has resistance to his existence erasure, as he could physically interact with Aizen, in which just his spiritual pressure alone can erase things from existence. Not just physical matter, but also shown to be souls, as it works on the other people as well. And his signature Getsuga Tensho and Getsu Jujutsu, and even the use of the Gran Ray Serum. Now, I've already gone over KCM2 Naruto and where he scales in a previous video, so I recommend you go watch it. But continuing off, a base 6...
Still my favorite anime ever, still one of my favorite main characters ever.
Half stage 1 Naruto was able to bully a Jubi Madara with just one Rinnegan. And Madara's most notable feat in the States when he seemingly grows the God Tree roots across the whole world. With this feat being placed or calculated at upwards of large planetary, and this level of power can be consistent, as he's stated to be close or approaching Hagoromo's powers before he even gets to the God Tree and the second Rinnegan amp. This is important because Hagoromo, even before absorbing the Ten Tails and became his Jinchuriki, was able to create the moon via sealing Kaguya. With the most atrocious low balls getting his feet up to large planetary easily, further showing the consistency. The one actually scaling using the lower and middle ends, not trying to drastically lowball his feet into oblivion. It gets a dwarf star closer to small star level, and again this Madara would scale to this easily, and in that 6-path stage mode, base Naruto was able to absolutely bully him. But when you introduce characters of the likes of Kaguya and Momoshiki, the scaling goes from a 1 to an 11. There are a few interpretations on these guys and the feats they perform, but I need to go over why they scale to their specific feats I'm about to list. Now, Kaguya's realms has been a contentious topic in the community for years, but it mostly comes down to whether her or Naruto scales to it. Now, there are a few ways to prove that Naruto scales to her realms, one being the expansive True-Seeking Orb. Not only can Kaguya just chill inside it and leave without suffering no damage, and then a rage jump to Naruto is not only able to cut her arm off, but is able to give her multiple wounds with his Sage Art attacks. And if you say she just resists her own jutsu, that's fine, but then you run into the argument that Naruto can produce an even more potent chakra than even she can resist. Which, by the way, this was going to destroy the entire time space of her realm. And Kaguya herself was legit producing enough chakra to grow the True-Seeking Orb, so it would do that. But even if you disregard this for some reason, in the events of early Barto, the downplay becomes irrelevant. As in the battle between Momoshiki, Naruto and Sasuke performed the Majestic Attire Susanoo. And in the bonus ninjutsu directory, it states that the Majestic Attire Susanoo wasn't just the strongest offensive and defensive, but the strongest jutsu to date. Which the expansive True-Seeking Orb is a jutsu. And the Majestic Attire Susanoo's power is not in hacks, but in raw defense and attacking power, meaning they would be more potent than the expansive True-Seeking Orb. Mind you, this was just Sasuke plus Naruto, meaning they would have half the power to do this. More importantly, this Naruto and Sasuke were heavily nerfed, as Naruto was only at half his power while Sasuke was heavily drained from using space-time ninjutsu. So ironically, Naruto by himself would be this strong, Sasuke respectively. So for the actual scale of Kaguya's realms, it is depicted to have many stars in her realms. Even in the official OVA of Barto, we blatantly see a star just chilling in the background, as well as her realms contain night and day cycles, just further showing that these realms contain said celestial bodies. And when calculating said feed being calculated upwards of solar system level, however, there is a higher end. With the introduction of Momoshiki, we were introduced to his dimension, in which it stated that he created it. Just based off the visuals, we say it contains many planets, stars, and even nebulas. Just at first glance, this would be a multi-solar system dimension, but with a closer inspection, we see that it also contains a redshift nebula. In which a redshift nebula shows the existence of not only galaxies, but as well as a universe, an expanding one at that. But even without that, it's been stated that this is a parallel dimension or even a parallel universe in outside sources to the Naruto universe, in which again it contains many stars, nebulas, and even galaxies, even at a point being stated that it's considered boundless. Now if we take this hyper literally, boundless means to have no limits and a synonym in reference to infinity. As well as the context that things inside Naruto have existed for quote an infinite amount of time, and with the aforementioned expanding universe provided from Momoshiki's dimension, in which it being parallel to Naruto's, this could mean that the Naruto universe has been expanding for an infinite amount of time, or make it an infinite sized universe. Though I understand the speculation of this argument, but I think it's something worth mentioning and is viable. But for the real war followed feat, again it comes from the light novel. in which it stated that not just Momoshiki's dimension, but also Kaguya's was a hyperspace. Now the kanji being used is Akukan, now which yes does both mean hyperspace and subspace while mostly meaning hyperspace, so we need to look inside the context of said dimensions. For one, it doesn't fit the definition of a subspace as it's not another space located inside another said space. It more fits the definition of a hyperspace as its hyperspace is used for means of travel, for an example, and the only ways to get to these dimensions is again used for ways of travel. As well as we already have an already existent subspace inside Naruto, as when using transportation, teleportation jutsu, you are transported inside a subspace to get to your point, which almost fits the definition of a subspace to a T, making the dimensions most accurately represented as the definition for the hyperspace. And hyperspaces are higher dimensional in nature or 4D, meaning characters who scale to Momoshiki as he created his own dimension and was draining it simultaneously, or even Kaguya with a pre-established scaling line, she would also be 4D.
I'm still thinking to this day that one moment where Sakura said she finally caught up to the
So essentially you have Naruto at Universal Plus, and if you think Momoshiki's dimension is actually infinite, it would be an infinite fourth dimensional structure or potentially multiversal plus attack potency.
Whoa!
In the past, I've gone over some lower Naruto characters in the war arc and how they far surpassed the speed of light. But rather than going over how many multiple times they've surpassed that from going from character upon that character stronger than that one, I'm gonna instead be going over the single most impressive speed feat in all of Naruto. As we know by now, Momoshiki created his dimension, and as we've already established, it's universal in size. This is impressive because while they were fighting, it was stated that he was also draining it and reaching beyond it, meaning he can drain and reach his entire chakra between and even beyond a universal distance within a short time frame. If we just assume it took the entire duration of their fight, which we see in the anime took around 4 minutes and 21 seconds, Momoshiki will be able to drain or go up speeds over 11 million times the speed of light. And this is something impressive about this is the fact that a base nerf Naruto could react and somewhat fight this Momoshiki, meaning just a base Naruto would be in these speeds, and in his strongest he would completely and utterly surpass these levels of speeds. And Naruto's most notable abilities are his multi-shadow clone jutsu, in which he creates clones to help him fight. At as low as he can create upwards of 1,000 clones, or you can make as many as there are leaves on a tree, which average trees can range upwards of 200,000. He as well has increased range with Sage Mode, can negate durability via attacking cells with Rasen Shuriken, has soul manipulation as he can see and interact with his own soul via grabbing it, and also resistance as he could resist it being stolen. Has high level sensory and cosmic awareness as well as non-physical interaction, as he can see and sense and interact with Madara's limbo clones, which are stated to not only be completely invisible but can be interacted with normally as they are beings that reside in an adjacent dimension, can even grab onto Kaguya's realms themselves. And lastly, he has resistance to power nullification as well as existence erasure, as he can interact and kick truth-seeking orbs, which are stated to not only negate all jutsu, but can permanently damage and kill Edo Tenseis, even right down to the soul.
Yep.
Now, I've already gone over Luffy in an older video, indefinitely by ad, but to recap that video, he scales to planet to Lar.
So, I was thinking about this question for a minute. Do y'all think Barrier Mode is Naruto's strongest feat? Because I be seeing people say it's the War Arc Naruto or Barrier Mode and Baruto. So comment below if which one do y'all think is like the peak of Naruto for real.
Large planetary with its multipliers, and with the higher ends reaching to star to solar system level, this is solely dependent on the scale of his planet, with easily massively faster than speed of light speed feats. And with the big three being completed and covered, with each individual member being very strong in their own right, some less than others. But can the big three compare to the Blue Blur himself? Throughout the years, Sonic's whole shtick is speed, so it's best to go over that first, as it's less controversial than his AP anyway. Sonic, as early as Adventure, with the help of the light shoes, is able to move at the speed of light. While Super Sonic is far superior to this base Sonic, in which in generations we see that modern Sonic's able to fight and beat a perfect Chaos without the need of the Chaos Emeralds. This notion is even highlighted upon inside the Encyclopedia, which is not only an officially licensed and published source by Sega, but is stated to be made as a guide to fully explain the ever-expanding universe of Sonic for us as the readers, making it a canon source of intel or a data book if you might take it as. What makes this FTL level of speed more consistent is due to the DS port of Sonic Colors, which had stated that not only did Sonic surpass the speed of light, but he thinks of this as something as a small time feat. Now, I didn't need to go over the low ends for Sonic speed. I just want to show you guys this level of speed that many characters try to achieve and so hard for people to argue, something that Sonic has done with ease. But moving on, Sonic in Secret of the Rings is able to not only traverse the Night Palace, but actually run and traverse the entirety of the Arabian Nights universe and get back to his own original universe. With said Night Palace being stated to be an infinite space in the manual guides, and continuing onward with its higher speed feats. Infamously, the Time Meter is known to be able to erase both time and space, and reducing reality to a white void of a limbo, in which it's stated and shown again that time just doesn't exist within inside this limbo. Now, people will argue this is just a resistance feat for Sonic, but I fail to see that it's stated that both in verse and the encyclopedia it's stated that this is just Sonic's pure speed, as well as their pure speed is enough to reverse the damage it caused to both time and space and return it to reality. Meaning Sonic with his raw speed is not only able to run in places with no time, but also even return it, giving Sonic inaccessible speed. Mind you, we've only been talking about a base generation Sonic at this period. Again, still talking about generations, when he enters his Super Sonic in the fight against the Time Eater, they are not only stated to be flying to the end of time, but actually make it or in their fight or are fighting at the end of time, making Super Sonic beyond linear time, as he was able to fly beyond the normal linear axis of time. This level of speed can be trans over to base Sonic, as for one, Infinite is stated to surpass all of Eggman's creations 1,000 times over, which would include the Time Eater. But more importantly, it's also stated on the official website that this is Sonic's strongest enemy to date.
People need to bring up Infinite more, because isn't Infinite like stronger than all of Sonic's like people, like the people that he fought against?
Off inside the story, Eggman's Death Egg robot is stated to have surpassed Infinite, and Sonic's able to fight and react to this said Eggman robot just in base, giving base Sonic immeasurable speed. And if all of this wasn't convincing enough for you, Sonic in Sonic Frontiers is stated by the end to transcend both law and time, putting him above time as a general, or making Sonic consistently immeasurable speed. As we've already established, a base modern Sonic from Generations is able to fight and beat Perfect Chaos, who is powered by all 7 Chaos Emeralds at this time, which has shown only one Chaos Emerald has shown the power to move entire massive chunks of the planet back together in small fractions of time, but the calculations vary from the smallest to this being at least a large planetary feat to even at the highest large star level due to the size of Sonic's planet, with star level Chaos Emerald powered things being consistent, as even the Eclipse Clanin is stated to be powered not by the Chaos Emeralds, but also stated because of that it can pierce stars in both Sonic Adventure 2 and Shadow the Hedgehog, as well as the final Egg Blaster shown to destroy entire star systems, with Calx being put this at multi-solar system level, making a base generation Sonic consistently in that stellar range of power. But when including the Supersonic state, his power gets cranked up a notch, as alongside Burning Blaze, both of them are able to fight and beat the Egg Salamander. And with the combination of the Soul and Chaos Emeralds, it's able to make a dimension that transcends all dimensions, in which we've already established a scale to it. And with the cosmology of Sonic's gameverse ranging, I'm going to be going over the low-end interpretation first, as we have the dimension known as Merigi World, which is a realm that contains all dreams across dimensions and where reality and dreams coexist together. This realm is also stated to house and contain a 4th dimensional space, both in games, several times in guides, or even the encyclopedia, as well as the original kanji blatantly says this is 4th dimensional, making this very easily a 4th dimensional construct. With the Egg Salamander stated to transcend dimensions, this would also include Marigold World, making the Egg Salamander and Generation Supersonic at least 5th dimensional. But when bringing up this higher dimensional skill, we must talk about the infamous character or villain Solaris, which he's stated to be a transcendent being or a hyper/super dimensional many times, even within inside the original kanji. So what does it mean to be hyper or super dimensional? If you search up super dimensions on Google, there's going to be no defined or official definition there, because super dimensions has no defined meaning in English. Instead, it derivatives from the Japanese kanji or chojigen. Now, there's a lot of contentions with this and what it means and power scaling wise, or just what it translates to in general. And if we use the infamous translator Google Translate and put chojigen in it, you get ultra dimensional. Only if you specifically write out super dimensional, hyper dimensional, or trans-dimensional in the English to Japanese section, you get different results for what chojigen means. Even in other translators to a space of the those other than the normal three-dimensional world, and it's something similar to a subspace. With higher dimensional being one of the more blatant translations, but with the other ultra, hyper, or super, the kanji of those words mean the same thing, that being cho. While super or ultra dimensions don't have a definitive definition in English, but hyperspaces do, and they are defined as higher dimensional spaces or structures. Now, without the use of these iffy online translators, let's actually translate the kanji. As we've already established, cho means super, ultra, hyper, as well as transcend, with the other following two kanji, jigen, which just means dimension. So now we find out that cho jigen either means transcendent dimension, super dimension, hyper dimension, or ultra dimension. And it cannot mean trans-dimensional, as the kanji for trans, or tozetsu, is not found at all in either translations for the kanji. And quickly, for those who try to say super dimensions are beyond all dimensionality, they claim that due to the characters used in dimension being tutsugi, says order or sequence, and since cho can mean transcend, they say that something that is hyper or super dimensional is in reference to higher extra dimensional spaces or structures. And lastly, thanks to the Rogue guy, he's very experienced in reading, speaking, and translating Japanese kanji, and he helped me understand and better my arguments. And please go subscribe to his channel. He posts his amazing content. We'll be uploading more this upcoming month, and we may have something cooking up in the near future. With the aforementioned statements and scaling of Solaris being super dimensional, with the root of these statements coming from Eggman, who, as we've already established, can create fifth dimensional machines, and he is saying that he is super dimensional in comparison to him, making Solaris sixth dimensional. Although Sonic at this time doesn't really scale to Solaris, as they couldn't hurt him physically due to him being higher dimensional in comparison to them, although they were able to attack and hurt his consciousness via mental attacks, so Sonic still has 6-dimensional mental hacks, which is still cool. But as we've already established earlier in the video, that's not only to say that Infinite is the strongest of Eggman's creations, but more importantly, on the official Sonic website it states that he is the strongest of Sonic's villains to date, which they would be talking from a higher narrative of the inverse, as they would know about Solaris and would include him as he's a villain of Sonic. And with the Death Egg robot surpassing of that said Infinite, and with a new modern Sonic able to react and fight said bot, making just base Sonic now 6-dimensional, and with Super Sonic would be much stronger, as the Super form was able to bring Sonic from 3D to 5D with 98 mental attacks, making the Super Amps a 2 inaccessible amps, or raises him by 2-dimensional tiers, or 3 if you include the mental attacks. As just the difference between the third and fourth dimension, or any dimension after that, would be beyond an unquantifiably infinite amount of infinities. As an example, you can have an infinite amount of 2D squares being stacked on top of each other, but they will never gain depth. Think of it as, how many zeros will it take to get to 1? As that process continues for each higher dimension after the next, if not being a higher degree, making a current supersonic 8th dimensional and with 9th dimensional mental attacks, or complex multiversal respectively. Now for the higher end of Sonic, we need to go over the higher end of Sonic's cosmology, which includes us going over Sonic Boom, as it's stated inside the encyclopedia to be a branch of the Sonic mythos, which does imply being a parallel universe, and the fact that it's inside the encyclopedia alone is supported by this, because it's said that the encyclopedia's purpose.
Small little mention, this is Game Sonic, bro. Like, oh my good, I knew Game Sonic was incredibly strong, especially compared to like Archie Sonic and the other versions of Sonic, but like, dang, that's strong. that's some crazy junk.
It's just to explain Sonic's ever-expanding universe to us as the reader. This notion again is supported inside the 25th anniversary art book. It states that in the Sonic Boom section that it's a parallel universe to the main line. And yes, it's not only an officially licensed and published source by Sega, as well as they worked in conjunction to make it accurate. Even in interviews, one of the heads of Team Sonic, Takashi Ichigo, claims that it's also parallel to the Sonic universe. As well as the head of the Big Red Button, who is also working on Sonic Boom, also confirmed that it's not just a parallel universe, but it's also a branch within inside the canon.
But on the universe aspect, so this is a new Sonic, but it's in a different universe from our original Sonic. It's like a parallel universe kind of thing.
You can think of it as that. We're really treating it as a branch to canon.
So yes, Sonic Boom's universe is canon to the mainline Sonic universe, and something I should preface is that I'm not saying the events that happen in Sonic Boom, such as Lyric, are canon to the mainline Sonic universe, When saying it's a parallel or branch in the canon, think of DC or the Marvel Universe, where you can have a parallel universe that are all canon underneath the same cosmology. Like you can have 616 Spider-Man and 1610 Spider-Man, both are canon to the same cosmology, just parallel, and the events aren't connected to one another. Now for why Sonic Boom's canonicity matters to the Sonic cosmology is due to string theory existing and being followed in the verse. This is first referenced in Season 1, the episode Hedgehog Day, in which Eggman gets stuck in that endless time loop due to shenanigans that happen, and he's researching reasons and theories on why this is happening, and one of which is string theory. Now, this is not only just a quick throwaway gag, and it doesn't necessarily prove anything until the upcoming next season. As the episode Mombot, he's trying to win a science fair, so he creates a miniature black hole. He explains later on in the episode he's using this black hole to prove the existence of string theory until he was cut off. Now, this makes sense, as the whole point he was trying to prove that he was the greatest scientist, and this would fit the title. And the whole black hole bit isn't just for jokes, as black holes legitimately have correlation in string theory, if not helping and prove it in a real life. So with this introduction, this would make the game verse of Sonic's cosmology 11th dimensional, as string theory is innately 11th dimensional in nature. And with the already aforementioned scaling of the Egg Salamander being dimensionally transcendent of the cosmology, this would make the Egg Salamander and Supersonic by proxy to defeating him 12th dimensional. And with Solaris being higher dimensional than either of that, he would be 13th dimensional. And with Infinite surpassing Solaris and the Death Egg Robot surpassing that, and with a base modern Sonic scaling to it, just a base modern Sonic would be 13th dimensional. And with the same logic we applied to the Super Ant before, only that would be a much higher degree, as it could bring Sonic from 3D to 12D with 13D mental attacks, meaning with this interpretation, the Supersonic form would be 9 inaccessible amps or raise him by 9 dimensional tiers, making Supersonic 22nd dimensional attack potency with 23rd dimensional mental attacks. And overall, with the lower end of cosmology, Sonic would be complex multiversal, and with the higher end of the cosmology, he would be hyperversal attack. Sonic's arsenal is as broad as his legacy. Sonic, as we've established with his raw speed, can bring reality back from non-existence, such as time, making abilities that stop time essentially useless to him, as if you would try to pull that on him, he would just rejuvenate the time just via existing. And on this matter, he also has resistance to some pretty high levels of existence erasure, as he was completely unaffected by the Time Eater erasing the timeline as we talked about, but more importantly, he was one of the more sole survivors of the 06 timeline erasure, as Solaris was gonna do it by himself, but at the end they go back in time and snuff him out, and within doing so it eradicates that entire timeline. Sonic not only remembers this whole thing while it's shown in Team Racers, he even has a conversation about it with Blaze, showing that she also remembers it, which can be consistent within other matters to Blaze's character. And what makes this existence erasure so important, because it was going to erase, and it did erase everything, which would include souls if they exist inside Sonic's verse. This erasure could also be on the conceptual level, as Solaris and then the erasure of the said event even affected everything in existence, which would also include Amerigo World, as it's also a dimension with the includence of the Precious Stone. Amerigo World is a dimension which all dreams come from and are made into reality with the Precious Stone, and showing this shows that they're independent from reality. These dreams encompass many aspects of reality, such as something you do, something you become, and something that changes, with some dimensions specifically going over the concepts that they come together as, such as peace, freedom, adventure, etc. And with the destruction of the Precious Stone, Malgaroo and all the dreams which encompass those aspects of reality will cease to exist. Sonic again not only resists this level of conceptual erasure, but he can rejuvenate reality with his own power, meaning he can even rejuvenate concepts on this level just by existing. Sonic also has resistances to reality manipulation, as he was completely unaffected by Eraser's Gen when he changed all of the Arabian Nights reality on a whim. He also has, as well as resists fate and pop manipulation, as when he was added to the story of the Arabian Nights, you not only have a predetermined fate which dictates the plot, Sonic was not only stated to be added to this, but also his fate was confirmed that he would die due to being the collector of the world rings. He not only defied this, but also changed the story / plot as well at the end. Has resistances to mind manipulation on a conceptual level, as he's completely unaffected and resists Dark Gaia's mind manipulation due to him being too mentally strong, with Dark Gaia manipulating very emotions and thoughts, hence conceptual. Has resistances to BFR and Sealing, as he was able to escape cyberspace, which was thought to be impossible to even the end. Even greater fate and law manipulation of resistance, as the end controls the fate of everything in the universe, and Sonic going against this was also stated to transcend law, since he would go against her rule. Sonic also has causality manipulation, as it was repeatedly stated that he was attempting or transcended causality, which was confirmed by the end yet again. And for his own personal stuff, he has low godly regeneration and type 4 and 8 immortality, as he can regenerate from his own soul and even come back from death as long as it still exists. And if he can't do that, he has the Chaos Emeralds, which he can come back to life from, even from death. He also has negation to that regeneration on that level, as Solaris can regenerate from his consciousness, but Sonic can attack and destroy. And when utilizing the Chaos Emeralds, he can stop time and seal others, as well as reality manipulation, as he can manipulate the very fabric of reality. After going over all respective parties, we see that the chances of the big three winning are essentially non-existent. Even if you say the big three have perfect sync with one another, and by using their higher end interpretation and times them all together by infinity, they wouldn't even come close to a base Sonic. He far classes in
base Sonic? Okay, that's
speed
that's
and
crazy.
strength,
That's
and with
crazy.
his hacks either be the same as them, just better, or having
Base?
overall better hacks in general. Even if you use the lowest interpretation of Sonic, the result wouldn't change at all. You could throw in the entirety of each respective verse and they wouldn't do anything, making Sonic definitively stronger than the big three and would absolutely destroy them along with their verse. And lastly, I want to thank you all for over 3,000.
That's crazy. That's so crazy. I don't think there's anything left.
It would absolutely
that's
destroy
it.
them along with their verse. And lastly, I want to thank you all for over 3,000 subscribers. I truly hope this was worth the wait. Probably the longest video on the channel for a while. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content coming soon. And that'll be all, y'all.
Clean. I'm not gonna lie. Kind of knew this because I was like, wait, if Sonic is going against Goku, Goku can pretty much easily beat Ichigo, Naruto, and Luffy. You see, that's where I'm like, Sonic can easily beat the big three. Now I think the biggest question now is who's the strongest out of the big three? Because I think to this day someone said Ichigo, probably most likely. But then I still want to see the Sonic versus Goku debates, because those debates be like really like interesting, especially when you think about like Super Sonic, Ultra Instinct Goku, their highest of the peaks. So yeah, that should be interesting. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, recommend me some more videos like these, and yeah, till next time, SB3 is out. Peace.